Welcome to Long COVID Radical Self-Care, where I provide simple, non-medical tips and tools to help you unleash your own healing potential and enjoy a healthier, more fulfilling life. I'm really excited about this episode because I think what I'm going to share with you can have a big impact on your quality of life as you heal. One of the most debilitating symptoms of long COVID is fatigue or lack of energy. There are so many things you want to do in a day, and your body just won't give you the energy to get it all done, right? You can try to push through it, and your body will just crash at some point, giving you no option but to recover. Or you can take it easy and feel frustrated because you feel totally unproductive. Feels like a lose-lose proposition, doesn't it? When I got through the acute phase of COVID, I started to experience this. But it wasn't the first time I'd been through that kind of fatigue and limited energy. I had been debilitated by pain and fatigue for several years when I had fibromyalgia, until someone taught me something that changed my daily routine and really helped me on the path to wellness. And today I want to share it with you. So here's the story. I was struggling through my days. I had a young toddler at home. I had waited 8 years to adopt a baby, and a few months after finally adopting one, I was diagnosed with fibro. As he grew, I could barely lift him. For anyone who's never experienced fibromyalgia, imagine you're wearing an invisible suit with weights sewn into the arms, the legs, the torso. You look healthy, but everything takes way more effort than it should, and the suit never comes off. The strain is there 24/7, so you're always exhausted. I often felt like I'd just run a marathon and my muscles couldn't recover. If you have long COVID, maybe you feel the same way. Technically, there was nothing I couldn't do, but everything took a toll. My son was in childcare despite me having given up my job. You see, by the time I got myself ready and got him off to daycare, I had to go back to bed and rest again. I lived on pain meds and other meds to counteract the side effects of the pain meds. At some point, one of my doctors or case manager arranged for an occupational therapist to come to my home to see if there was anything they could do that would make life easier for me. Now, despite being unwell, I was still proud and a little resistant to anything that labeled me as disabled, thinking that would somehow destine me to a lifetime of illness. They had already suggested I use a cane, and I refused to use one. Proud, vain, stubborn, probably a little of each. So as you could imagine, I was a little defensive about having an occupational therapist come in. I hoped that if I had ignored my condition, it would go away. A strategy I can confirm does not work. When the OT came in, she assessed my symptoms and then started showing me ways to conserve energy. She suggested we rearrange the cupboards with the things I use daily placed on the lower shelves or on the counter so I didn't need to bend or reach. I told her I could reach just fine. She showed me how to move a pot from the stove to the counter using a mat to slide it instead of lifting it. I told her I could lift a pot just fine. I explained to her that my movement wasn't restricted. I was just sore and tired all the time. Then she stopped in her tracks, looked at me intently, and framed my situation in a way that changed the way I looked at everything. She asked me to imagine that the energy I had each day was equal to 100 marbles. 100 marbles equaled 100% of the energy I could healthily expend in a day. I would start each day with a jar with 100 marbles, but everything I do in a day costs marbles. Making the bed in the morning might cost 5 marbles, or 5% of my daily energy. Having a shower might cost 20 marbles. Picking up my son might cost 5 marbles. Making a meal could cost 15 to 30 marbles, depending on the meal. Grocery shopping would cost another 25. You get the idea. If I spent more than my 100 marbles on any one day, I'd experience a crash that could take days to recover from. We spent half an hour developing a rough list of activities and their cost, and it became clear that I often spent more than 100 marbles in a day. This caused me to yo-yo, meaning I would spend more marbles than I had, crash for a few days, and then do it again because the chores had piled up while I was down. This pattern did not promote a sense of well-being and re-traumatized my body every time I overextended myself. If I stayed within my marble budget, I would be more stable and allow my body to heal. After we looked at how I was spending my marbles, she explained that we could take a closer look at my activities and find ways to conserve marbles. This would allow me to put more activities into a day without overspending. At the time, I had long hair and washed and curled it every day. That used up 10 marbles. If I changed my hairstyle to something easier to manage and washed it every second day, I could save 30 or 40 marbles a week. If I rearranged my cupboards, I could save an average of 3 marbles for each meal. If I hung my laundry on hangers instead of folding most of it, I could save another 5. If I taught my son to step on a little stool instead of picking him up off the ground, I could save another 2. By asking the grocery store cashier if someone could put the groceries in the car for me, I could save another 10 marbles. You get the idea. The conservation hacks could give me 25 to 30% more marbles each day to use for other activities. So instead of washing my hair, I could go to the park. Instead of folding laundry, I could read a book. Now, some of these changes weren't easy for me. I'm a recovering type A personality, and I did not like having my canned soup next to the bowls in my cupboard. But I knew it served my purposes in terms of conserving my marbles. Any other type A's out there? I was open enough to give it a try, and before long I was looking at every activity to see where I could cut the energy expenditure. I found there were dozens of ways to save marbles. Instead of taking each piece of recycling from the kitchen to the garage, I put a small recycling bin in the kitchen and transferred it to the garage once every second or third day. I alternated cooking with prepared meals. And when I cooked, I froze some of it in serving-sized containers so they could easily be thawed and reheated. I liked reading, but found that holding a book up drained marbles. So I learned to put a pillow on my lap and rest my arms on it. I also got a backrest for reading in bed. Once I got the hang of it, I enjoyed finding ways to conserve energy. I felt like I had some control over my life, which was a feeling I hadn't had before I did this. I started to analyze everything I did in terms of energy cost, and I looked for ways to save marbles so I could fit more activity into my days. I realized that accepting I had limitations did not mean I was giving up, or that I would still have those limitations next month or next year. There was power in accepting where I was at that moment while holding the hope of getting better. Can any of you relate to that? So your mission this week, should you wish to accept it, is to observe your activities through the eyes of the 100 marbles. Look at where your 100 marbles are going each day. Then look for ways to reduce the number that you use for each activity, especially for activities that have limited payoff. Here are 5 tips to get started. 1. Look at where things you use all the time are positioned. Can you place them closer to where you can use them to avoid bending, reaching, or walking to get them? Your kitchen is a gold mine for opportunities, but every room is worth a look. I took my blow dryer, which had been in a cupboard below the sink, and put it on a hook beside the sink so I didn't need to bend for it or even unwind it to plug it in. Since I had a toddler, the occupational therapist got me a grabber that allowed me to pick up his toys without having to bend. Here it is. I still love this thing for getting socks from behind the dryer and picking up litter on the lawn. I recommend you visit a mobility store online or in person to see what's there that could save you some marbles. They have wonderful inventions. 2. Ask yourself what you can do less often or in a different way to conserve energy. If you have a partner, maybe he or she could agree to make the bed to save you a few marbles. Or you could eliminate some of the fancy pillows you need to pick up off the floor and put back on the bed each day. Even saving 1 marble a day on an activity is 365 marbles a year, and that's a lot of marbles. Everybody's life and routine is different, so you'll need to look around and find where your marbles are being spent. 3. Swallow your pride and ask for help. Most people are more than happy to assist. Remember that what costs you 10 marbles might cost someone else only 2 marbles. When I started to ask the cashier for someone to help put my groceries in the car, the young guys who helped me were often happy to have a break from stocking shelves or collecting carts from the parking lot. You might want to come up with a list of things that need to be moved around to make your home more efficient, and ask a friend to come over for an afternoon to help. 4. Make sure your daily plans include something enjoyable. You want to do more than survive. You want a life, and you deserve a life with joy. I talk a lot more about this in episode 2. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you watched it and you're still not incorporating some joy into every day, watch it again. 5. Plan carefully for special events to avoid the yo-yo effect. Special events can be real energy hogs. First of all, make sure it's something that's worth the energy investment before you commit. Is it going to bring you joy? If you decide to do it, then plan how you can reduce the number of marbles required and how you might be able to spread the cost over more than one day. For example, the old me would have guests over and make sure I did the dishes and cleaned up everything before I went to bed. It wouldn't be unusual to find me washing floors at 3 o'clock in the morning after an evening of cards. Remember, I'm a recovering type A. When I had fibro, that just wasn't possible anymore. When I counted marbles, I realized that if I was going to enjoy guests without crashing the next day, I needed to serve store-bought snacks or make food the day before and leave the dishes until the next morning. That wasn't easy for me, but I did learn that the sky did not fall in when I left dishes by the sink. They would, in fact, wait until morning. So your assignment for this week is to practice not losing all your marbles. Have some fun with it. Drop a note in the comments below to let me know some of the ways you're able to conserve marbles. It may help others looking for ideas. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. It'll help me get these videos out to other people who may benefit from them. I'll see you next week with some more tips for managing long COVID. Until then, be kind to yourself and each other.